Hi, welcome to episode 24 of the Gentle Knitter podcast. My name is Nicole and I'm coming to you from Ottawa, Ontario. Today is Sunday, June 24th, and this is the 24th episode. I hope you're doing well. Everything's going quite well here. It's been very, very busy at work, and it hasn't given me a ton of time to knit. But I do have some works in progress to show you, and I will also announce a kind of a large giveaway. Sorry, there's a plane going over here. It's the last giveaway I'm going to do for a while. I think I had mentioned in the last episode that I would be kind of taking a break on giveaways, but I had a few items still lined up, so I'm going to put them all together in one really beautiful package. So I'm excited to announce that. So I'll talk about the beautiful things that I have for that giveaway, and I will also do two book reviews. So I hope you have something nice to drink, and maybe you have your work in progress with you, and let's have a little chat. So we just had summer solstice on the 21st, and on that day I went for a beautiful long hike in a wood that's not too far from my house. And I actually took a little bit of footage. I thought you might like to see one of my favorite places here in the area, and yeah, just thought I would kind of take you along. I'm going to try and do a little bit more of that, just sort of take video of what's going on, the things that I'm up to, the things that I'm making. I've noticed that other video podcasts are doing more of that, and I really enjoy that format. There's the Wooden Nest podcast. She always has extra footage that's always beautifully shot. If you don't watch her podcast, you really should. She is a wonderful knitter, and she's also started to sell naturally dyed yarn, and her yarn is really lovely. I hope to one day get my hands on some. But she talks a lot about her process, and she's very generous in sharing her experiences. But just to get back to what I was saying before, she also includes a lot of extra footage, and I don't know how she does it. The light in her videos is always so beautiful. But anyway, I've been inspired by her, and also Melody Hoffman from Mandarin. She also often includes extra videos, and of course California, they do that very well. And so I might try to kind of update the podcast a little bit by having these extra little glimpses, maybe show you a little bit more about Marcel, because I get questions all the time. How's Marcel doing? Can we see him? So I'll show you a short clip of him. The problem with Marcel is that he is adorable and sweet and the best dog ever, but he also sleeps 18 hours a day, so oftentimes there's not a lot to film, but anyway, I filmed him doing his favorite thing, lying around, and gave him a few belly rubs. But why don't I start with what I've been working on. So I have 3 works in progress, and 2 of them are rather different projects for me. I think I had mentioned in the last episode that I don't have any summer knits. I really only knit with woolly wool, and so all of my sweaters and garments are for cold weather. So I decided to maybe branch out a little bit, and I had some linen yarn in my stash, so I decided to cast on for a couple of summer projects. I'm actually hoping to finish these by the end of July, because my husband and I are actually going on a trip, and we are so excited. I really need a vacation. I haven't gone away or taken, a good chunk of time off in quite a while, and I really need it. It's our 20th wedding anniversary, and so we have decided to go to Italy. And so we're going to spend 2 weeks in Florence. We will be staying in Florence, but probably doing day trips around Tuscany. And so I couldn't be more excited. We got an Airbnb, and we will be just basically having a really relaxing, restful time, just exploring the city and spending time in cafes and just eating all the gelato. So anyway, I'm very excited, and I wanted to have a couple of summery sweaters that I made myself that I could throw over, a dress on a cooler evening, that kind of thing. So yeah, so let me show you. I've got, like I said, 2 sweaters on the go, and the first one is, the pattern is by Heidi Kermeyer, and the pattern name is called Fine Sand, and I believe I have my paper copy here, so I can show you a photo. Here we go. So it's this cardigan here. It's a very, very simple, incredibly simple garment. It starts at the top, so it's a top down, and it kind of is a yoke construction, so you're doing increases pretty much evenly throughout the top of the sweater. And I'm actually just finished all of those increases, and I'm getting ready to separate for the sleeves. And so here is, actually I've already separated for the sleeves. I put this down a week ago and haven't picked it up again, but the yarn is Quince & Company Sparrow, and the colorway is, I don't remember, it is Pigeon. So it's a beautiful bluish gray. Just have the remainder. I've got a bunch of skeins here, but they're all tangled. Anyway, the color is showing up more purple. It's more of a grayish blue, and it's very beautiful. I've never knit a linen sweater for myself, but I have knit several samples in this yarn, and I know for a fact that once the knitting is done, and for blocking, really you just throw it in the washing machine and the dryer, which is great, and the fabric becomes this beautiful silky drapey. It evens all out, and it wears beautifully. And the great thing with linen is that it just gets softer and more fluid over time, so it just gets more beautiful. So I'm quite excited about that, but still have quite a bit to go, so I better get on that if I want to have it for our trip. So that's my first work in progress, and I think I mentioned yes, I mentioned the yarn. It's Quince & Company Sparrow. I am knitting another sweater in Quince & Company yarn. This is their other linen yarn called Kestrel. And here is the, it's the Davis sweater by Pam Allen. And it basically is kind of a boxy pullover. So that's the body. It's all kind of floofy right now because it's I've just separated for the front and back, and now I'm working the fronts. This is the beginning of the neckline. It looks really messy, but you do end up picking up stitches and knitting a little neckband. So I'm hoping that this kind of weirdness here will even out once I pick up stitches. The yarn is Kestrel, I mentioned that. The color is sand. I don't know where this is a sand color, but I guess in PEI, in Prince Edward Island, the dirt is red, but anyway, this is called sand. It's a beautiful salmony color. This is actually a really pretty accurate representation of that color. It's a color that I've grown to really love, this kind of peachy, warm, salmony pink. And I have a linen dress that is sort of a paler version of this, and I think it'll be really beautiful over that dress. So that's kind of, I'm hoping it'll just be a very breezy sweater. I will put up a picture of the sweater. It's just basically a very simple drop shoulder pullover. And yeah, looking forward to, this one is knitting up so fast, and I think that's why I've kind of neglected the other sweater. Once I got going on this, and it was just in the round, brainless, no thinking for the whole body, I just got going, and it was just growing so fast. It was very satisfying. But I do need to get back to the other one, because that one will be a bit of a slower slog. So anyway, those are the two garments I have on the go right now. I have another project, another work in progress that is definitely not appropriate for this time of year, but I'm actually knitting it for a friend, Paul from Herbal Yarn Company. She, if you don't know her yarn, she is an indie dyer, and she lives near Montreal. And I met her last summer at the Twist Festival. I was invited to participate in a podcaster's lounge kind of Q&A, and she was there with, she does a podcast also, and so that's when I met her, and yeah, we've just been corresponding. She asked me if I would be interested in knitting a shawl for her booth, because she's actually going to have a booth this year at the Twist Festival, which is very exciting. And so she said, well, if you're interested, I'll send you some yarn and you can knit whatever shawl you want. We'll put it up in the booth, and then you can keep the shawl after. So I thought that was a pretty lovely deal. And the thing I really love is that she has a base that is not superwash. And so that's the one that she was hoping I would knit a sample for. And the base is called Urceau Mouton. Mouton means sheep in French. And it's 80% Dorset wool and 20% nylon. So it's not 100% natural, but it does, the nylon lends a lot of strength to it. And honestly, it feels very woolly. It doesn't feel synthetic at all. And I love this color. I got to choose the color. The color is called fawn, which means fawn. So Faon. and she's planning on having quite a lot of this yarn in her booth at Twist Festival. I don't know if she has any in her shop. I know that she has been really busy working on building stock for the festival, so yeah, but I mean, you can always message her and see if she has any. I know she is really good at replying her messages, and her stuff is so beautiful. I love this wool. It's very rustic. I mean, I'm always going on about it's rustic, but it's not itchy. But I'm not somebody who's easily itches, and is definitely the case for this yarn. But it's beautiful, and just the subtle, like, again, that sort of beigey, salmony pink, but then with a lot of gray and some little pops of brown, and then a few little brighter pops of pink. It's just a very subtle and beautiful colorway. So I am knitting a shawl. Here is the beginning of it. And it's, of course, it's not blocked, but this is a really lovely kind of cabley lace pattern. And the pattern is called Dohne. I think that's how you pronounce it. Dohne. And the designer, oh, actually she put in a little pronunciation. It says Dooney, so Dooney. The designer is Ocean, and it's really lovely. It's got that gorgeous cabley lace, and then for about half of the shawl, and then the rest is garter. And you know how I feel about garter, especially I find in a yarn that has a bit of variegation. The garter just really highlights all of those beautiful colors. So this is what I'm doing. The other thing I really love about this pattern is that the edge here, there's a little kind of garter edge and a built-in I-cord, and that just creates such a nice, clean edging. It's really beautiful. So I've been really enjoying working on this, and we'll probably bring this with me to Italy so I can finish it and have it ready for Twist, which is on, it's the third weekend in August, I believe. I will put the date down below. Twist is an annual yarn festival. It's, I think, the biggest yarn festival in Canada. It's a really lovely, lovely festival. It's happening in Saint-André-Avelin, which is a small town that's about 40 minutes away from Ottawa. It's beautiful, beautiful country, a gorgeous drive up. I love going there. And so anyway, I'll be finishing this shawl for that. And I think this shawl, again, will probably, this color will go with a lot of my clothes, because I wear a lot of gray, and then I have that linen dress that is sort of this color, actually. It's kind of a very pale, peachy, pinky, beigey color. One of those undefinable colors that I love so much. So those are my works in progress. I have not been working on anything else. I know last time I podcasted I had a pair of socks. I haven't touched them at all. I probably had a few other projects that I've really just put aside. I did a little bit of spinning. I spun some fiber that I bought at Rhinebeck last year. This fiber here is by Classy Squid. Is that what it's called? Classy Squid Fiber Co. And this fiber was Shetland. It was a braid of Shetland that I bought in the Leaf Fall colorway. Very, very much out of my comfort zone, but I really love how it turned out. It's just very jewelly, lots of that lovely type of yellow that I love, like kind of golden color, some reds, some purples. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna use this for. I was thinking I might do some color work, and then have this as the yarn that would create the motif, and then have maybe like a dark, um, like black Shetland, which is more of a browny, like a dark chocolate brown, um, as the background color. I think that that would be really pretty to do maybe like a hat, or that might be even enough to do, you know, the top of a sweater, a yoked sweater, if the motif wasn't too deep. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I spun it um, woolen, or half woolen. I spun it in the fold, sorry, which I think I explained last time. You break off a piece and fold it over your finger, and then you spin from that folded bit, and that way you get a result that's not quite worsted, because the fibers are not, they're kind of jumbly a little bit because it's been folded over, but not as jumbled as a woolen prep. So you end up with a slightly poofier, but it's easier to manage. I'm not good at all at spinning woolen. And what I did with this one is I took the braid and just split it in half, and then spun from each half. I spun my singles with each half, and I didn't break up the color any more than that. So what it means is that I got longer color repeats, and I also marked the beginning and the end, so that I would always I started both of my plies at the same spot. So when I plied the yarn, it had more or less the same colors running, you know, with some overlap, but I wanted a yarn that would end up having kind of more solid stripes. And so if you look here, you know, the yellow yarn is plied together, the pinky colors are plied together. I mean, there is some mix there, but generally, you know, the dark purple is plied together. And that way, like I said, when I knit it up, if you don't do that, then you're applying, you know, you're not matching the colors, and then you get sometimes a more muddied result. You get, I mean, it depends, but when you kind of do that, the colors sort of all intermingle, and the colors end up less defined. So I wanted something that was a little more defined, so that if I did color work, then it would really definitely show as that color. I don't know if that's making any sense, but anyway, it's something that Amy Beth from the Fat Squirrel podcast talked about several episodes ago. It's a method of spinning that she likes to do, the way she likes to manage her colors in fiber. And I hadn't really thought of doing that before, and I am really happy with the results. So I probably will do that again when I have a very colorful fiber like this. But we'll see. We'll see what it's like when I knit up with it. I'll probably end up knitting something that I would wear when I'm out skiing, because these aren't the colors I really wear in everyday life. But my ski clothes they're sports clothes, so they're all kinds of different colors, and I kind of let myself be a little more, wear brighter, more loud colors in my ski wear. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking. What should I talk about next? I've been doing some sewing. Mostly I've been taking out clothes that needed some kind of adjustment or mending and doing that. And I've gotten a lot of satisfaction out of that. It's really nice. For instance, this dress is a dress that I bought last winter from a company called Not Perfect Linen on Etsy, and they have really beautiful, beautiful things. I believe it's a Lithuanian company, and they're really well known for their linen. And this dress is actually a wool linen blend, which I thought was such a cool blend. It's actually really comfortable even in the summer. I think just the mix of the wool and the linen means that it's very breathable, and it is appropriate at this time of year. But it's cozy in the winter too. So anyway, I really like it, except that the size I bought was too big. And the other thing is the dress had a very full gathered skirt, and I just felt just was there was too much fabric. It just felt too floofy, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. So what I ended up doing, maybe I'll stand up and show you. So it's one of these dresses that has kind of just sort of a sleeveless top and then a gathered skirt, but it was really, really gathered, so it was a lot of fabric. So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking the skirt off. So I basically just picked the seam apart, and then I laid the skirt flat, and the skirt was like 2 meters wide. It was really a lot of fabric. So I took off about actually it was folded over, so like maybe this much fabric, and made sure that the rest of the skirt was still wider than my top. And then I ran two rows of very long stitches and did the gathering. Basically, you just pull on the threads and then your fabric bunches up, and then you just put enough gathering so that it gathers into the same width of the thing you want to attach the skirt to, and you just kind of even out the pleats throughout the fabric. And then I just basically sewed the skirt back onto the top, and I'm so pleased with it because now I feel like it just has the right amount of skirt, and it's still super comfortable, and I just feel a lot more inclined to wear this dress than I used to. So I was very, very happy that I did that. I was a little nervous cutting into it, thinking, what if I ruin this? And it was a very reasonably priced dress, but still, it wasn't cheap, and it's beautiful fabric, and it would be a waste to ruin it. But now I have a dress that I'm really happy to wear, and I have all this extra fabric now that I could use to make a project bag or some other things. So that was a win. And then the other thing I did was I fixed a dress. This dress I've had forever. It is it's another linen dress, and it's by a company called Pipsqueak Shawl. They are a New York, I think they're Brooklyn based company that makes beautiful linen clothes, and I bought it probably maybe 10 years ago. At that time, finding long, flowy linen dresses was almost impossible. Now they're quite popular, and there's a lot of people making them, but at the time, I remember, I think I'd seen an ad for their clothing in Selvage magazine, and I thought, if ever I go to New York, I want to go to that shop because everything they make is like gray and beige and white. They definitely have that kind of very paired neutral aesthetic that, again, was not common at the time. Now it's a lot more popular. Anyway, so I bought this dress. It's just a long, it's all crinkled right now, but just a long, simple shift type of dress. And I've worn it, well, for 10 years. I've worn it so much. And last week, I sat down and the hem ripped from the skirt, and I was like, oh no, that's the end of this dress, you know. And I thought, well, maybe I could mend it. And I remembered that I had bought this book several years ago called Slow Stitch, and it is by Claire Wellesley Smith. You may know her. She has a beautiful Instagram account, and she also has a blog. She's a well-known textile artist. And I've always been interested in the type of Japanese mending of clothing called boro, and it's just a style of mending that was used to mend clothes that were work clothes, so it would mend it over and over again, and these clothes would be passed down and end up being just so worked and so stitched and overstitched, and all different types of fabrics stitched in, and there's such a beauty in those pieces of work. There might actually be an example of boro in here. Yeah, so that's Japanese boro, and so this artist, she makes beautiful art pieces that are kind of inspired by that technique, and so that's one of her pieces. She does natural dyeing of her threads, and she just does a lot of surface work and patches, and I really love this style of fabric textile art. Here's another one that's really beautiful. I love this kind of, like, this fabric is sort of worn away, but then it's worked on top of, it's probably like a very thin silk, and then this is a more nubbly linen type of fabric. Anyway, I remembered this book and I thought I would like to do something like that and maybe fix the hem of my dress. So that's exactly what I did. So this piece of fabric is actually a sleeve of another Pipsqueak chapeau dress that I had, and the dress was quite generous size, but the sleeves were quite tight, and I, over the years, as we often do, have, gained a few pounds, and the sleeves were too tight. I couldn't wear the dress anymore. So I took the sleeves off and made it a sleeveless dress, and now I wear it all the time. So I used one of the sleeves, so that this part here is actually the hem of the sleeve, but I just thought I liked that kind of different texture. So I just basically, here is where the rip was, and I just added it on and then did a ton of stitching, just black on black. It's quite hard to see, but it's just that texture is something that I really love. It's just that wabi-sabi aesthetic, which is a Japanese term, and I think I've talked about it before on this podcast. It's a term that's hard to translate, but some people sort of explain it as the beauty of worn and used things. And so that's kind of a little bit of wabi-sabi aesthetic on my linen dress, which I will hopefully be able to wear for a little while longer. I'm thinking that the fabric is probably starting to get pretty tired, and if there's one rip there might be more to come. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be either adding more patches to this, or maybe I will take it apart and use the fabric to do something else. I don't know yet, but anyway, I will wear it for a little while longer. But I just thought it would give me an opportunity to talk about this book. One of the nice things about this book is, so it talks about Claire's work, and there's some how-to, how to do this kind of stitch work on your own. And then the other thing that's really nice is that it features the work of other artists, other textile artists, and including one that I wanted to show you. It's kind of in the mending section, and it talks about Celia Pym's work, and she takes moth-eaten knits, and this happens to be this very old Shetland sweater, and she does some mending to it all over, which is kind of neat to me. It sort of makes me think of moss growing on a tree, how something sort of takes over. There's a really beautiful organic quality to it that I really like. And I just love the idea of taking something that is more or less trash and turning it into something beautiful. So anyway, thought I would show that to you. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this last giveaway that I'm doing for a little while. And I was sent some really gorgeous things that I want to show you, and basically I will create a thread on Ravelry in the Ravelry group. I think I'll just call it the Summer Solstice giveaway, seeing as we just celebrated Summer Solstice. The first item is also going to be a book review on my part, and it is the newest publication by Making Stories called Breeze. And so the lovely ladies from the Making Stories project contacted me, and they wanted to know if they could send me a copy to review and a copy to give away. And I've been just so impressed with their other publications. They put out that Woods, beautiful Woods collection, and then they also put out a natural sock yarn, sock pattern collection that I talked about a couple of episodes ago. And then this one is a really interesting collection. It's got a lot of more summery garments, and that's kind of nice because it's sort of in line with the things that I've been trying to make this summer. I got this sort of after I'd started my other projects, but I might end up making a few other pieces this summer if I have time out of this book, because they're really beautiful. Let me show you this beautiful t-shirt called Marin, and it is by Rebecca Mauser. And it's just a lovely little textural t-shirt with a beautiful contrasting edges. I really like that. There's a shawl that I absolutely fell in love with. called Elise by Morgan Capistrain, and it's this shawl here. It's just so simple, but really, really beautiful, and it can be worn as a wrap, probably as a scarf too. So I really think that is gorgeous. And like their other books, they have profiles, so designer profiles. This one is on Verena Kors, who's one of the women who head up this project, and she's got these really pretty socks. And the socks are knit with Blacker's Tamar, not sure how you say that, yarn, and it's another sock yarn that I'm hoping to try at a certain point. But I love those socks, and I might end up knitting them in the yarn, the sock yarn I showed you last time from Gregoria Fibers. If you remember, it was like a really pale sage gray. So yeah, so I might make those socks out of that yarn. There's this really sweet tee, or tank, I should say. The pattern is, no, that's the shawl, sorry. Let me get to the tank. Sorry. Where is it? Sahil, this tank here, and the texture on that is just so beautiful. It's really pretty. I love that they have chosen the model that they've chosen. It's really nice to have a book that has a model that I can relate to physically. Maybe I'll leave it at that, but anyway, it doesn't happen a lot, so it's nice. This is really pretty. Solano. It's super simple from the front, but then you have this lovely deep pleat in the back, and I imagine you can probably wear it either way. And it says that you can knit it sleeveless. Yeah, so there's the sleeveless version. Very pretty. So as usual with making stories, they've got gorgeous photography, beautiful patterns. I literally want to knit every single one. Wonderful articles, yarn profiles, designer profiles. It's just a really thoughtful collection with very pretty wearable pieces. Nothing crazy, nothing, you know, just pieces you could wear forever. Classic, but interesting. And yeah, just a lovely, lovely book. So I highly recommend you pick it up. But I will be giving a copy away. So that's the first part of the giveaway, is a copy of Breeze. The winner, I will, when I pick the winner, then the ladies from Making Stories will send a copy of the book to them, to the winner. So yeah, so very beautiful collection. The next item that I will include in the giveaway is some beautiful yarn that was donated to the podcast by a lovely, lovely wool dyer who's local to me. I've talked about her company before. It's Riverside Studios, and Catherine is the dyer, or one of the dyers of that company. She's got a small staff now of some very creative and very talented ladies. She has donated these skeins of a beautiful blue-faced Leicester. It's not treated, so it's not superwash. It's a 2-ply fingering, and it's glorious. I don't know if you can see that. The luster of blue-faced Leicester is just incomparable. It's coming out more purpley on the screen. It's definitely more of a grayish tinge to those colors. There's some brown, there's some black, some gray, some blue. Just such a gorgeous dye job. The color is called Slate, and I think so. You get 378 yards per skein, and I think this would make the most beautiful shawl. It could even make, there's enough to make a pullover. You could make like a cropped sweater. And so I really appreciate Catherine donating this yarn to the podcast. I'm a big fan of her yarn, and I'm really excited that she has this non-superwash base. I have some in my stash, and it's really, really lovely stuff. So that will be included in the giveaway. And the third item that's in the giveaway was donated to me by the Fox and the Sheep. And if you don't know that podcast, The Fox and the Sheep, it's a really lovely, lovely podcast. It's done by Nina Pomeranke, and she has a Etsy shop called The Fox and the Sheep. She's from Sweden, and she makes the most beautiful carved wooden nostopins. I think that's how you pronounce it. Nostopins are kind of a wooden rod or a little stick that you can use to wind balls, like a center pull ball. And the ones that she makes, I'll put a picture up here. They're so lovely. They are carved with animals at the top, and she is such a talented carver. I just find her sculptures really, they're very lively and very sweet. She makes these gorgeous owls that, maybe one day I'm hoping I can catch one of her updates. They sell out pretty much immediately, but she's a very talented woman, and she sent me this beautiful organic merino that's from her area, and this yarn is naturally dyed, so she dyed it herself with indigo, and this is of course natural. And so this is actually a kit to make her beautiful pattern called Moonlight Traveler Knits, and she sent me a copy of the pattern and some yarn, and would like to donate this yarn and a pattern to the winner of the giveaway. So definitely check out her Etsy shop. Check out her podcast for sure. She's really thoughtful. She's knits some really beautiful things. She's into natural yarns, of course, and natural dyeing. So she's got a lot of really, really interesting things to say. And her design, of course, moths on mittens. I'm gonna be into that, right? So anyway, I would encourage you to check her out. So those are the 3 items that are going in the giveaway. You've got this yarn, the beautiful Riverside Studio yarn, and the copy of Breeze. So I'm going to do one winner for all 3 items. And like I said, go to the Ravelry group, and it'll be a an entry called, or a thread called Summer Solstice Giveaway. And like I mentioned, I think that's going to be it for giveaways for a while. I've been receiving a lot of patterns and a lot of offers for more giveaways, and I truly appreciate it. But like I mentioned, I would like to take a bit of a break from doing giveaways. There's shipping costs, but there's also just the coordination of doing it, and I don't know, I think I just maybe want to, like I said, just take a little break. So, anyway, that is pretty much it for me today. It's a bit of a shorter episode, but I hope that you are getting a lot of enjoyment out of the summer days, the long days, and that your creative juices are flowing and that you're getting a chance to spend some time outside. I know I'm really making an effort, even though I'm quite busy at work, to just spend more time outside and really take advantage of the bounty of wild plants that are out there. I thought I would just show you what I'm drinking here. I'm gonna take a sip because I'm really thirsty. This is actually a lemonade that I made with, of course, lemon juice. But also I used instead of water, I used a herbal infusion. And with herbal infusions, for those of you who don't know, they are a way of taking in herbal medicine in a way that's a little more nourishing than just making a tea. There are certain herbs that are very, very safe to take on a daily basis. And they are not so much medicinal as they are just supportive. So they're like a food. They just have a lot of minerals and vitamins and phytochemicals that are just really nourishing. And so this infusion is an oat straw infusion. And it's one that I take fairly regularly. There's several herbs that I really love to take in. One is oat straw. I also drink a lot of nettle infusion, and I'm going to show you a little clip of one of my my little encounters with the beautiful nettle plant that I came across on one of my walks. And infusions basically are, you take an ounce of dried, you can use fresh too, obviously, but an ounce of herb, and then you put that ounce in a mason jar and fill it up with boiling water, and then let it infuse for at least 4 hours. Then you strain the plant matter out and drink the resulting liquid. Some of the infusions can be a little, can take some getting used to in terms of flavor. I like the oat straw. It's quite mild. It just has a kind of a very mellow taste, and I find that it's a nice base for a lemonade. It's quite warm today, so I thought it would be quite nice. And then for the sweetener in this, I used another herbal preparation that I made earlier this month, or last month, I guess, which is some, I hardly have any left, but some violet syrup. And I don't know if you can see, it's not at all showing up. This is a beautiful blue color. There, you can sort of see it there. And basically what I did was I gathered a bunch of violet flowers and put them in a saucepan with sugar and water, and basically just boiled it down to make a simple syrup. So if you, basically any simple syrup recipe, just the proportion of how much sugar and how much water, just add in whatever edible herb you want. You could make a simple syrup with thyme or with lemon balm or with rose would be really beautiful. In this case, it's violet. My violets were not super fragrant. There's a very, very subtle violet fragrance, but once it's in the lemonade, it doesn't really taste, it doesn't change the taste, but it's just a sweetener. And the nice thing with it is that it didn't work with this because I didn't put a lot of syrup in, and there's also the yellow of the oats that kind of muddied it. But if you take this simple syrup and you pour it in and then you put water, as soon as you put an acid in, it goes from blue to bright pinky purple. And it does that in front of your eyes, and it's really beautiful. And if you want to impress your friends, you know, make them a nice spritzer. Sometimes I will put the syrup in, and then I will fill it up with some sparkling water, and then just basically squeeze a lemon in, and then just start to stir, and it magically goes from blue to purple, a purpley pink. And people are always impressed with my herbal magic. But this is super refreshing, and it's also incredibly nutritious. Oats, for those who wonder, are really they're very soothing to the nervous system. So if you're feeling stressed and a little frazzled, oats will reassure you, will calm you, but it's not sedating. So it's not, doesn't make you sleepy. It's like just taking a breath. I actually was watching a video on YouTube by Deb Soul, who is the owner of Avena Botanicals in Maine, and she said that taking in oat medicine is like sitting in a field of oats, and just the sound of the grain waving in the breeze that's the feeling that you get when you take an oat medicine. It's just a breath. It just feels good. And so this week, I have to say, I needed some of that because, you know, everything that's going on, of course, in my own personal life, I'm just very busy. Work is a little bananas. We're opening a new exhibit next month. But then just everything that's going on in the news, it's just been an incredibly upsetting and stressful week. And so, so I needed some calming, centering energy, and oat infusion is a really great way to get that. Of course, I should say that whenever I talk about working with herbs and herbal medicine, I am not a herbalist, or, you know, I'm not a doctor. I don't have those credentials. I have some knowledge that I feel comfortable using, but everybody is different, and everybody has their own personal health history, and if you're on certain medications, herbs can be contraindicated. So everything I say about herbs is my personal use and my personal experience. But of course, I would really encourage you, before you take anybody's opinion or ideas on any type of health decision, that you make your own research and make sure that those things are appropriate for you. But I do love to speak about herbs, especially herbs that are generally really safe. So things like oat, things like nettle, violet is also quite safe. Motherwort is fairly safe, and I've talked about those. But I would really urge you, if I do inspire you to explore the world of herbs, that you do your own research and make sure that, again, that those things are right for you. So on that note, I hope that you are enjoying summer's bounty and that you're well and having lots of lovely time outside and crafting, of course. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye. I will hopefully podcast again before we go to Italy. All right, bye. Hi. I'm out here in the forest, one of my favorite little paths that's not too far from my house, and just taking a little forest bath. And it feels really good. I've been very busy lately, putting too much time and mental energy into work and other worries, but it's summer. Today is the summer solstice, and I'm gonna take a bit more time for this and to do other healing things. Anyway, I thought I would share that with you and just, yeah, take it in. So pretty. I found one of my very favorite plant allies. When I talk about herbal medicine, a lot of the plants that I work with are plants that are really gentle and really safe to use in large quantities, and in fact, stinging nettle is actually a really fantastic food source. So any herb that can be eaten as a food is generally really, really safe. Garlic is one that comes to mind, oat is another, and stinging nettle can be eaten as a green, so you can use it like you would spinach, cook it up. I like to make it into spanakopita. That's quite delicious. I also like to make a pesto out of it. Some people wonder about the sting. Stinging nettle, of course, is known for its painful little reminder when you brush up against it. It is that painful sensation you get is brushing against the small little microscopic hairs that are on the plant. I'm not sure my camera will be able to focus on those, but basically when you brush up against the plant, it releases formic acid, which is the same type of irritant that I can only think of the French word fourmi, that ants produce. And but when you crush stinging nettle, either through chopping it or putting it in a food processor, the sting goes away. And I have a really good trick if you do happen to brush up against stinging nettle and you get a sting. There's another plant that is usually found nearby, and that's plantain. And if you take the leaf of a plantain and you crush it between your fingers to make kind of a paste, you can put that on your sting, and the sting, it will neutralize the sting right away. So yeah, try that. If you ever brush up against stinging nettle, you can make it go away with some plantain. But anyway, stinging nettle, what I love about it is that it is very nourishing herb, and it is full of minerals and calcium. Well, calcium is a mineral. Iron and calcium are the ones that come to mind for me. It's just a really beautiful, nourishing herb. If you're feeling low energy, it's really good for your nails and your hair. And I like to make infusions with dried stinging nettle. And usually I use about an ounce of herb, and I put it in a mason jar, and I fill the mason jar with water and let it steep for at least 4 hours. I usually just do it right before I go to bed, and put it in the fridge and let it steep overnight, and drink it the next day. It is a very, very earthy tea, or infusion, I should say. It might take some getting used to, but I often actually put the resulting infusion in my smoothies, and that way I don't really taste the bitter if I'm not in the mood for bitter. Sometimes it's nice to drink bitter infusions because it helps, I find, with sugar cravings. It's kind of the yin and the yang of wanting sweet, you take in bitter, and it can help. Or at least that's what I've been told, and it might be psychosomatic, but I have found it to work on occasion. So anyway, my beautiful stinging nettle, a crone herb, a herb that is associated with grandmothers, with older women, and one that is best picked in spring. This one is probably kind of a little too far gone. You can see there are buds there, and that usually signals that it's no longer time to harvest it. Anyway, goodbye for now. I don't collect plants in these woods. It's a park, and you're not really supposed to pick plants here. But stinging nettle is found in all kinds of not wasteland, but abandoned fields at the edge of rivers and streams, and it's a plant that's quite easy and abundant. So keep an eye out for Sister Stinging Nettle.